The music was loud. Cheering. Whistles. The kind of sound that made you feel like you were part of something magical. It was SeaWorld, 2004, families packed into the stands, camcorders rolling, kids clutching stuffed orcas. Ken Peters stood at the edge of the pool, wetsuit glistening under the lights. He waved to the crowd, then gave a hand signal. A second later, splash, Capcut surged from the water like a missile. At first, everything went as planned. The giant orca spun, leapt, and soaked the front rows. People laughed. Cameras zoomed. Ken dove in beside her. But then, something shifted. A sudden twist. A blur of black and white. The water churned violently. A sharp cry echoed across the stadium. "She's got him!" Capcut's jaws clamped onto Ken's foot. The crowd thought it was a stunt until she dragged him under. The music stopped. The water stilled for a moment. Then came the scream of a child, the rising buzz of panic. Ken resurfaced, gasping, eyes wide in terror. His face was bloodied, hair plastered to his skull. But before he could reach the surface fully, Capcut yanked him under again. From the sidelines, trainers froze. There was no protocol for this. No button to press. No net. Just chaos. "She's not responding," one trainer yelled. "She's not releasing." Capcut didn't thrash. She held. Calm. Controlled. Like she was making a point. Because orcas aren't just powerful, they're smart. Smarter than we ever gave them credit for. In the wild, they swim 100 miles a day. They hunt in packs. They grieve. They strategize. In captivity? They circle tanks barely 4 times their body length. They chew on metal gates. Their teeth rot. Their dorsal fins collapse. Capcut had been performing for over a decade. She knew the routines. She knew the applause. She also knew who controlled her life, and it wasn't her. Ken surfaced again, coughing, clutching his foot. Blood swirled around him. "Let go, girl. Please," he muttered, breathless. For a moment, she did. Trainers motioned him toward the platform. But before he reached it, another surge. Another pull. The crowd gasped in horror. A mother covered her daughter's eyes. Someone dropped their camera. "She's not letting him go," a voice whispered behind the glass. And still, no one jumped in. No one could. You don't reason with 8,000 pounds of muscle and instinct. Capcut surfaced, eyes locked on the audience. Silent. Still. Ken's body floated behind her like a rag doll. Then she disappeared beneath the water again, dragging him down for the 3rd time. There were no more cheers. No more music. Only screams and the awful sound of silence before rescue alarms started to blare. And beneath that silence, one truth began to rise: this wasn't a show anymore. It never had been. Ken Peters walked into the enclosure early that morning, wetsuit half-zipped, coffee in hand, whistling softly. Capcut surfaced before he even called her. He smiled and tapped the water. "There she is. She's my girl." To the cameras, it looked like a friendship, man and orca, bonded through years of rehearsed trust. Ken was one of the few trainers allowed in the water with her. He had earned that through time, routine, and a quiet kind of confidence. Footage from earlier shows painted a perfect picture. Ken gripping Capcut's dorsal fin as she spun. Him standing on her nose as she lifted him out of the water. Choreographed trust. Applause every time. But off camera, something had shifted. "She's been acting off," one trainer whispered during a break. "Floats in place for hours. Refuses to come when called." Another nodded. "I saw her chew the metal bars again." Her teeth are a mess. Ken didn't ignore it. He noticed the signs too. The fluke slaps. The slow tail stalls. The long, eerie stillness before shows. He'd studied captive behavior. He knew when an orca was stressed. But still, he kept showing up. "She knows me," Ken said in an old interview. "I trust her. I always have." What SeaWorld sold was a fantasy, giant, smiling whales dancing to music, painted as gentle giants. But orcas don't smile. Their jaws are fixed. Their real language is behavior, body posture, eye contact, movement. And Capcut had been speaking for weeks. The trainers noticed. The vet staff filed notes. But nothing changed. Crowds kept coming. Kids clapped. The music blared. Dolphins leapt. Trainers smiled. Capcut swam her loops. But beneath all of it, tension. Tight, quiet, invisible to the cheering families. Then came a staff meeting. Just a quick one. Casual. A younger trainer, new to the team, finally said it out loud. "I wouldn't get in the water with her today. She's off." Ken glanced over. "She's just moody sometimes." "I'm serious. She looked right through me this morning." Ken didn't argue. He just gave a soft smile. "I've worked with her for 12 years. She won't hurt me." The other trainer didn't reply. Just looked down at her clipboard, uneasy. Outside, Capcut floated near the glass, unmoving. Watching. And in the background, a speaker played upbeat music for the next wave of guests arriving at the park. The illusion held. But barely. Ken zipped up his wetsuit, took one last look at the pool, and whispered, "All right, girl. Let's go to work." He stepped onto the platform, gave a sharp whistle, and dove in. The water was still. Too still. Capcut floated upright, motionless, only her rostrum breaking the surface. Her eyes, unblinking, fixed on nothing. Trainers called it logging. Scientists called it something else, depression. She had done it for hours the day before. And it wasn't the first sign. In 1978, Capcut had been just a baby when she was taken from Icelandic waters. Only a year old. Ripped from her mother's side. Orcas form tight, lifelong pods, especially females. That separation? Experts say it's like abducting a human toddler and never letting them see their family again. Her early years were full of concrete walls, cold water, and unfamiliar voices. She was moved from park to park. Given numbers. Taught to jump for fish. And still, she performed. She gave birth in captivity. But even motherhood was controlled. Her calves were used in shows, scripted reunions in front of cheering crowds. One trainer later admitted it was all staged. She wasn't allowed to mother like a wild orca would. By now, Capcut had spent over 2 decades in a tank. Her teeth were worn down from chewing the metal gates. And recently, she'd started biting again. She went after the gate yesterday, one handler whispered in the break room. She rammed Takara, another added, referring to a fellow orca. "Did you see the scratches?" Ken overheard. He didn't react. Just tied the strap on his wetsuit and headed for the water. During rehearsal, she swam beside him. Close. Too close. A sudden flick of her massive fluke, and it missed Ken's chest by inches. "Whoa," Ken said softly. "Easy, girl." The head vet was watching. He made a note, possible behavioral frustration. Not an immediate risk. The truth was, no one wanted to sound the alarm. SeaWorld didn't allow trainers to speak out. Whispers were common. Action wasn't. One trainer muttered, "She's trying to tell us something." Another shot back, yeah? Then say it louder. But no one pushed back. Not publicly. Not where it counted. Because the show had to go on. And now, it was about to start. The crowd filed in. Music blasted from the speakers. Backstage, Ken checked the straps on his vest. He looked at Kasatka, who was still floating, silent, just beneath the surface. "She'll warm up once we start," he said. She didn't. As the show began, Kasatka ignored Ken's first signal. Then the second. She circled instead, slow, deliberate laps around the pool. Ken tried again. Hand signal. Whistle. Still nothing. Then she charged. The water exploded. Gasps echoed through the stadium. And before anyone could react, her jaws clamped down around Ken's foot. Not clumsy. Not curious. Intentional. Ken couldn't breathe. The pressure crushed his chest as Kasatka dragged him deeper. Her jaws clenched around his foot, not to kill, but to hold. Control. She wasn't thrashing. She was calm. Purposeful. Ken had worked with her long enough to understand this wasn't random. In the wild, orcas are known to play with seals, flipping them, tossing them, dragging them under for hours before letting them go. It's not about hunger. It's about power. And now, Ken was the seal. "She's not letting him up," a trainer shouted from the platform. Kasatka surfaced, just for a breath, then dove again, yanking Ken into the blue. His lungs burned. His vision blurred. He tucked into a ball to protect his organs. "Stay calm," he told himself. "Don't fight her." He made a hand signal, an old one. A cue from training. Kasatka paused. Looked at him. Then, dove again. Underwater, there was no sound. Just the drag of her movement, the rush of blood in Ken's ears, and the crushing silence of captivity. 8 minutes passed. Maybe more. By the time Kasatka finally released him, Ken floated to the surface like driftwood, bleeding, exhausted, barely conscious. He didn't scream. He couldn't. Trainers rushed to the edge, barricading the slide-out platform to block Kasatka. "Don't let her come back up," someone yelled. Ken dragged himself out, his foot shredded, tendons torn, muscle exposed. He limped behind the gate, collapsing as medics ran to him. Kasatka stayed near the glass, watching. Still. SeaWorld called it a minor incident. But behind closed doors, staff were shaken. "She could have killed him," one said. "She chose not to," another whispered. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration stepped in. Fined SeaWorld $75,000. Called the incident willful negligence. Said trainers had been knowingly put at risk. That moment, those terrifying minutes underwater, became a key point in the investigation that would later fuel the Blackfish documentary. Ken never swam with Kasatka again. She remained in her tank for 13 more years. In 2017, she died from a bacterial infection. 39 years in captivity. Never once returning to the ocean she came from. And Ken? He stayed silent. Gave no public interviews. But those who knew him said he changed. The show didn't stop. Not right away. Music still played. Children still clapped. But the ripple had started. The illusion had cracked. Was it really an accident, or the final cry of an animal who had spent a lifetime unheard? Because behind every trick, every flip, every staged smile, was a creature capable of joy, grief, and finally, revolt. If this story moved you, don't scroll away, share it. Let Kasatka's voice echo beyond the tank.